Welcome back to the show. My name is John Carver, and today I want to share some thoughts with you on living in fear. Living in fear. Now, that seems to be a big theme in the shows that I share with everybody because for a very long time, I struggled with fear myself. Way back when I was a kid, I had a horrible stutter, and that degraded into my adult life where it controlled everything I did. Every action I took, every goal that I wanted to achieve, that was the barometer in which I looked at my life to say, you know, I can't do this because, or I shouldn't attempt to do this because this struggle would be getting in my way. So there came a time where I had to either continue to use that as an excuse and the fear that was associated with that speech problem that I still have from time to time, or leverage that and learn how to overcome as much of it as I can. So maybe an idea or a phrase or a quote or a concept or a story in this episode today will help you get through some of the fearful events in your life that you've been struggling with for a long time. William Shakespeare said one time, "Our doubts are traitors. Our doubts are traitors and make us lose the good we oft might win by fearing to attempt." I can remember when I was younger, not that many years back, maybe 10 years back and way back into my teen years, I thought that people who went to the gym had some sort of special genes or special power or special ability that they were wired to excel in gym. So I thought for probably 35, 40 years of my life, you couldn't catch me into a gym. You couldn't pay me to walk into a gym because I had this mindset of people that only the muscular ones would go to the gym and work out. And then some stuff happened that, in my words, forced me to start going to the gym. And I realized that, you know what, just average and ordinary people go to the gym just to stay in shape because they have their own whys, they have their own reasons to continue to work out. I really, I guess you could say, chose not to take certain steps in life because of fear. Fear and doubt really impact your potential, don't they? Fear and doubt impact your potential. I love quotes by people that are way smarter than me. Eleanor Roosevelt said one time, "Do one thing every day that scares you." Again, do one thing every day that scares you. That has been probably one of my biggest barometers in my own life. Because certain people of a certain personality type, with a temperament or baggage or whatever, they live their life struggling with fear. So those people who struggle with fear, if you're smart, will push yourself to do things that you're afraid of doing consistently. J.K. Rowling, you know who that is, right? The author of the Harry Potter series, said that fear of a name increases fear of the thing itself. Again, fear of a name increases fear of the thing itself. Have you ever gone back and remembered some of the negative things that have happened to you, and then you mention or you hear the name of that person who did that thing to you, and your body reacts in a way that is sometimes shocking? You respond, your adrenaline goes up, your heart rate goes up, you start sweating, you start getting nervous, you start getting dizzy, you start getting all these emotions are coming back from stuff that happened decades ago because you heard the name again, or you saw them in a grocery store, or you saw them in the newspaper. All that stuff keeps coming back because we allow it to come back. Plato said, "We can easily forgive a child who is afraid of the dark, but the real tragedy of life is when men are afraid of the light." Again, this show's about fear. This show is about dealing with the struggles and the fear that you may have in your life, and maybe people that you love, maybe people that you care about that you see struggling with fear, and hopefully there's some ideas in this show today that maybe you can give them and share with them that will pull them through some of their struggles. It's really critical that you expose yourself to your deepest fear. And then after that, really, fear doesn't have much power at all, because then fear kind of shrinks back and becomes the little kitten that it really is. Have you ever confronted a bully? I can remember in school we had a few bullies that once they were confronted, they ran the other way. I submit to you that there are bullies in your life right now that are, in your own mind, overpowering. You think they're stronger than you. You think they're smarter than you. But in fact, they're just little cowards. Their attitude and the way they carry themselves is simply based in fear. In fact, let me give you a real example. I know of an individual, I won't mention their name, who I was told by his mother was bullied as a child. So there came a time in this child's life where they said, I'm not going to be bullied anymore. I'm going to become a bully. So this person then switched the situation around from their fear and turned that fear into becoming a bully. Obviously, that's wrong. Obviously, that is not something that any of us should do, but I'm trying to tell you this. But there are some people in your world that you see as very evil and very bad and very negative and very this and very that. When in fact, if you look at the core of what they're doing, it's really based in fear. Nelson Mandela said one time, I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel timid, but he who conquers that fear. I can remember one time I was in a meeting of maybe 20 people or less, and the speaker asked me to read a paragraph of something that we were studying at the time. It terrified me so much that literally my voice box locked up. I couldn't speak. Nothing came out. Because of fear, because of terror, because of, oh my goodness, I would have to read in front of all these people. We're talking probably 40 years ago, maybe a little more than 40 years ago. The point I'm trying to make is fear can literally stop you in your tracks. I was 9 years old once upon a time, and our school would send the 9-year-olds to the YMCA for swim lessons. And there was a segment of the class I was in that knew how to swim. And there was another segment of the class, like me, who didn't know how to swim, and I was terrified of swimming, terrified of drowning. My mother had almost drowned as a child until a friend saved her life, and that fear of her story was imprinted upon me. So then I just assumed that when you get in the water, you're either going to almost drown or die or do something that was not very pleasant. So I was terrified. I cannot express to you how terrified I was of being in a pool where the water was deeper and higher than me. So there came a time when the teacher, and I was literally sobbing my eyeballs out. Not just trickling, I'm talking wailing because I was terrified. So the instructor came over and put these styrofoam belts on me. There was, I don't remember, maybe 6 or 8 of these block styrofoam things wrapped around my waist. So there's nothing that could have held me down, but still I was terrified. So the day came, I can't remember how many weeks into these classes, I think it was once a week, that they had all of us line up to dive or to jump off of the diving board. I think it was like 12 feet of water or something. It was obscene. It was like 12 feet of water. I was only maybe 5 foot at the time, maybe. I was like, how? So I started crying. So as I moved up in the line closer to the diving board, I sneaked out of the line and went to the back of the line, because then the kids who jumped in, they would come back and want to do it again, those who could swim. So I just sneaked back until once upon a time the teacher caught me. He said, wait a minute, Carver, you're going to the back of the line. So guess what he did? He put me to the front of the line, and I was sobbing like a little girl, sobbing. So they not literally pushed me to the edge of the diving board, but they got me out to the end of the diving board. And I'll never forget her name. There was a little girl behind me in my class. Her name was Regina. Regina was behind me, who could swim. Mind you, if you could, okay, I'm a little kid, 9 years old, had this belt of styrofoam, right? I couldn't sink. There's nothing in the world that could have held me down because the styrofoam would obviously bring me back to the top. So I'm crying, and I want to go back, and Regina's right behind me, maybe 6 feet behind me, waiting her turn. And it was between her and me, and the water was out, and I was in the way. I was blocking her from having fun. I didn't want to jump. So then the teacher counted down. 3, 2, 1. And I jumped. And guess what happened? It was shocking. I bounced back to the top. I was afraid all this time for no reason, because the styrofoam pulled me to the top. I'm suggesting to you in this episode that a lot of things that you are afraid of and or you have been afraid of are really based in fiction, are really based in information that is not very accurate at all. There's a great little movie called The Life of Pi. And Jan Martel states, who authored this, he said, "I must say a word about fear. It is life's only true opponent. Only fear can defeat life. It is a clever, treacherous adversary. How well I know. It has no decency, respects no law or convention, shows no mercy. Listen, it goes for your weakest spot, which it finds with unnerving ease. It begins in your mind always, so you must fight hard to express it. You must fight hard to shine the light of words upon it, because if you don't, if your fear becomes a wordless darkness that you avoid, perhaps even manage to forget, you open yourself to further attacks of fear because you never truly fought the opponent who defeated you." Let me share that last part. He said, if you open yourself to further attacks of fear because you never truly fought the opponent who defeated you. I suggest to you, and I will suggest to you over and over in this show, that you and I need to constantly battle the fear that has been holding us back if we truly want to overcome the fear. One of my biggest fears for decades is speaking in public. Speaking in front of a camera was terrifying to me for a very long time. Until I realized that if I don't start changing my mindset about this fear, this terror that I was dealing with, that I was not going to be able to jump into the water. I was not going to achieve some of the goals that I had to achieve, because in order to get to the goals that I had to achieve, I had to get through that part to get there. I had to get through the part of being able to speak in front of people, being able to speak in front of a camera to get to this next goal. I had to go through 1 and 2 to get to 3, right? So do you. So if you want to get to a certain goal, then you have to get through these hurdles, these bumps in the road, these mountains that seem like you can't even climb them, if you want to get to that ultimate goal, that you really have a desire, an ache in your heart to really do these things. You and I have to face fear consistently. So for me, my kids tease me about it all the time. They say, Dad, you talk to everybody, anywhere. Well, there's a method to my madness, if you will, in that arena, because for a very large percentage of my life, the stutter that I struggled with, it kept me quiet. So in order for me to continue to work on that and to continue to critique that and to attempt to get more fluent, how do I do that? I do that by talking to people. If you want to be an artist, you're not going to wake up one day and be an artist, are you? You're going to become a great artist by doing art. And 90% of what you are going to create is going to be garbage. But as you get better at it, it's going to get more beautiful. What if you want to learn a musical instrument, the trumpet or a cello or a piano or violin or guitar or drums. The first several times you do it, it's going to be pretty bad. I can remember when my piano instructor, her name was Phyllis Davis, I'll never forget her. She would attempt to teach me certain skill sets on the piano. And I was fighting her the whole way because I was comfortable doing what I was doing. I learned it, how to play the piano in a certain way, and I didn't want to change. So she insisted that I do certain things. I'm not going to get into the mechanics of that, but she encouraged me to do certain things on the piano that were different, but made my piano playing more fluid, you see. But I had to get through that initial negative, that initial, no, I'm not going to do this because it's not fun. George R.R. Martin said one time, laughter is poison to fear. Laughter is poison to fear. If you look very closely at some of the people that are in the public eye that seem to be the more verbose, the ones that seem to be outgoing, the ones that seem to be always jovial, always happy, always the life of the party. If you have and take the time, invest the time to dig a little deeper into what they're doing and why they're doing it, they're also trying to overcome some personal internal struggles in their own life. And some of those people, if you read about them and study them, and in their own words, by the way, you will see that they're struggling to overcome some of their issues, that they have to be constantly, in essence, what this quote said, laughter is poison to fear. So as you pursue and push through some of those negative, difficult struggles that you're trying to go through every day, when you put a laughter spin on it, when you kind of make it light instead of making it a struggle, you're going to get through these things so much faster. Aristotle said this. He said, he who has overcome his fears will truly be free. Again, he who has overcome his fears will truly be free. As I tape this show, thanks to quite a few people on our team, we're broadcasting these episodes like these in 1.7 million homes a week. 1.7 billion homes a week. And that covers multiple states. Now, you wouldn't think, I would assume, that a guy with a stuttering problem would even want to be on TV. And at the time, before we started these shows, I did not, as I mentioned earlier. However, I flipped the situation around. I saw a need in society because I've been in thousands of people's homes in my business, and I've seen some things that are troubling. I've seen some things that hurt me tremendously by how people think, how they behave, and what they don't know. So I thought, am I going to continue to allow my fear to keep me from doing something that terrorizes me at the time and not help these people that I know could use some help and some advice and some ideas and some concepts that can help them climb out of some struggles that they're going through in their life? Or am I going to continue to be selfish? I can't speak for you, but that's really what it was for me. Am I going to continue to be selfish and not push through the fear that I had been struggling with for decades for the benefit of a lot of people? So I'm going to ask you that question too here today. Are you going to continue to allow your fear to stand in your way from achieving some extraordinary successes in your life? Or are you continue to make excuses for that fear, that terror, that potential fear of embarrassment, maybe the fear of failing, maybe the fear of becoming a failure, maybe the fear of not succeeding, from keeping you from doing some things that can take you in a direction that will open doors of opportunities that you can't even possibly see today. Because like I said moments ago with the diving board, sometimes you have to get pass step 1 and 2 to get to 3. You can't even see 3 because 1 and 2 doorways are shut. You have to walk through 1, walk through 2, and then you see an opportunity with doorway 3. Fear can either tear you down, it can rip you apart, or if you work it properly, it can push you to do some extraordinary things in your life. Francis Chan said one time, "Our greatest fear should not be afraid, but of succeeding at things in life that don't really matter." Again, our greatest fear should not be of failure, but of succeeding at things in life that don't really matter. I'll say it again. The older I get, I'm constantly pushing myself out of my terror zone. And I still have a few of them. I'm not maybe going to share all of them with you today. I'm definitely not, because I'm still struggling with them. I haven't succeeded in that yet. But as I approach situations in my life, that I have to ask myself the question, am I still going to allow that fear from keeping me from doing what's extraordinary because of the embarrassment of falling on my face? And sometimes I think you've been faced with that too. You've looked in the mirror and you thought, I don't want people to see me fail. I don't want to be embarrassed. I don't want to be humiliated. And listen to how I'm starting all these things. I. And I think maybe you have struggled with that too. I don't want to. I don't want to feel. I don't want to go through this. I don't want to be embarrassed. I don't want to be considered a failure. I don't want to be looked at differently. I don't want to be called that. I don't want to be people to assume this about me. It's I. But if you take your eyes off of yourself and look at the people that you may impact in the world, then the fear, believe it or not, begins to dissolve. Because the more you focus on the fear, guess what happens? The bigger the fear gets. The monster gets so big as you give more attention to the fear. As you feed the fear grows. George R.R. Martin said one time, the man who fears losing has already lost. The man who, or the person who fears that they're going to lose has already lost. Theodore Roosevelt said one time, I love this quote, I've read it multiple times, far better it is to dare mighty things, to win glorious triumphs, even though checkered by failure, than to take rank with those poor spirits who neither enjoy much nor suffer much because they live in the gray twilight that knows neither victory nor defeat. Again, I love that last part, that they neither know victory nor defeat. The majority of people that you're going to deal with from day to day are just average and ordinary. Again, the majority of people that you deal with from day to day are just average and ordinary. I'm asking you today, are you going to spend the rest of your life being average and ordinary? Or are you going to push through some of the brick walls of fear that you have in your own life that's been keeping you in that average and ordinary mode instead of the extraordinary mode? The people you see on TV, the people you see on the movies, they're not anything special. They've just pushed through that wall multiple times, more times than you and I will ever know about. They've bled, they've sweated, they've been terrorized by so much, but they kept pushing forward. And that seems to be the ticket for people who succeed in life, no matter what field they're in. The people that are the most tenacious, the people who have the most, what some people call stick-to-itiveness, they seem to be able to achieve so much more than everybody else. Will Smith said one time, the great actor, producer, rapper, he said, fear is not real. He said, the only place that fear can exist is in our thoughts of the future. It is a product of our imagination, causing us to fear things that do not at present and may not ever exist. He said, that is near insanity. Do not misunderstand me. Danger is very real, but fear is a choice. Fear is a choice. I'm asking you today, multiple times in this episode, to look at the fears that you have in your life and look at them for what they are. And for me, my fears were bullies. Because when I stood up to the bullies, the fears, guess what happened? They faded away. They literally melted in front of me because I stopped giving the fear the power. I stopped really putting gasoline in the engine of what I was fearing, because the more I feared, the bigger it got. The monster got so huge. Then I started dealing with my own fears, and then those fears started melting away. Ralph Waldo Emerson, as I finished this episode, he said this: "Do the thing you fear, and the death of fear is certain." Again, do the thing you fear, and the death of fear is certain. So I encourage you today, as we wind up this episode, look at your fears. Maybe even write them down. I assume it's not too many of them, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 fears that you have. But I'm challenging you today to look at them, approach them, attack them, push through them, knock them down consistently. And then one day you're going to wake up and realize that you don't even remember having that fear, because that's been a bully that's been long since gone. I hope a couple things in this show helped you today, encouraged you, gave you an idea or two to push through some of the fear in your own life. My name is John Carver. Thanks for watching, and we'll be back real soon.